Hello everybody, David McGuffin here. Travel Talk Tuesday for January the 12th, 2021. Boy, the year is kicking off quickly. Tonight we're talking about Tuscany again. And last weekend, just a couple of days ago, we had a in-person wine tasting here with my friend Claudia Del Duca from Marcampo Winery, just outside of Volterra. And we had, my gosh, 12, 14 people here. And it was the coldest day in Florida in probably the last 5 or 6 years. I committed to have an outside event because we wanted to do social distancing. And I just wanted to make sure that everything was great, but we had 12 folks show up, plus Charlotte and I. And we had Claudia ship over some bottles of wine from Tuscany, some of their wine, and we tasted 4 of their wines, and she guided us through the tasting. The event took us probably about an hour and a half, and so I went through this morning and edited the whole thing, and it still came out to more than an hour. So what we're going to look at tonight is the first segment of it, and that's just Claudia, I wouldn't say just, it's Claudia talking about their vineyards, their winery, their agriturismo, and a little bit about the town of Volterra and the history of their family and how they're making wine. I'll put on Facebook tomorrow and a link on my website, the wine tasting portion of it, but and you can look through it on your own time, because we had a great time because the wine was physically here, so we were able to taste it. But with you online looking at it, there's a lot of good information, but the in-person participation isn't there. And to continue with that, while Claudia is talking a little bit, I spent the afternoon getting ready to prepare some fresh pasta. Claudia and her mother Ivana's recipe of making ravioli stuffed with smoked ricotta cheese. And so hence I'm in the Podere Marcampo apron. We've got some fresh pasta going over here. And I want to show you a 5-minute video real quickly of what I did to prepare the pasta to get it going. So let me find that. There we go. We'll let that run while other people are joining. And like I say, we'll let that go.
This recipe for ravioli stuffed with ricotta cheese and smoked ricotta cheese began with 200 grams of all-purpose flour.
You know, I don't think I'm sharing the screen, so I know I didn't do that. One moment. Yep. Okay, here we go again, sharing the screen. And
200 grams of cake flour, or
I'll start it from the beginning.
This recipe for ravioli stuffed with ricotta cheese and smoked ricotta cheese began with 200 grams of all-purpose flour, 200 grams of cake flour, or I guess I use bread flour instead of the cake flour, and 100 grams of semolina flour. I mix it up in the KitchenAid mixer over here, and then I'm going to roll it out just a little bit and put it in the fridge for 30 minutes to chill. So here I've kneaded the dough a little bit by hand. Again, just to clarify, 100 grams of semolina flour, 200 grams of all-purpose flour, and 200 grams of bread flour. I'll flatten it out, knead it a little bit, I'll put it in the cellophane and put it in the fridge for 30 minutes. So next I'm mixing up the filling. It's 500 grams of ricotta cheese. And by the way, this little scale here, I bought at my local grocery store, $13, and it measures grams, which apparently is the way that most of all the recipes for cakes and pastas and all of that stuff, especially coming from Italy, is measured. So it's worth the $13 to buy it. My recipe calls for an additional 100 grams of smoked ricotta, but I can't find that here locally. So next best thing is I'm gonna put 100 grams of this smoked food in there, put it all in the food processor with the ricotta and mix it all up. A little nutmeg goes in there too for seasoning. I got my two cheeses in the mixing bowl.
I forgot I had the shirt on, Panther Marching Band.
Put a little fresh nutmeg in there. I'll grate that. Let's see. Just enough to put in a little
On the bottom of it, it's
ricotta.
my motto, doing what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether you want to do it or not, with a smile on your face.
And then some fresh sea salt. I'll blend it all together, and that will be my filling for the pasta I'm going to make. Okay, after I've blended it all up, you can see it has the consistency of a cream cheese of sorts, so that'll be the filling for my ricotta pasta. Started. Hey, so I made this tomato sauce a couple of days ago for a wine event we had, and we served spaghetti with tomato sauce. Basically, I put in olive oil in a pot, chop up some onions, saute them for a while, then take San Marzano whole tomatoes from Italy, crush them in here in this pot, and until it fills up a bit, and I usually use 2 or 3 cans of that, and then let it cook for just a little bit. And I put salt and pepper, some Italian seasoning in it, and some seasoning that I bought in Chianti, and I put it in this food mill, and I'm gonna grind it down so that the sauce for the ricotta is nice and smooth and creamy without lumps. Just so you can see what the ultimate product is, it's this as opposed to with chunks in it. And you can see the tomato sauce goes from a rough textured consistency to a real smooth, velvety consistency for the ultimate product here. So that'll be great on the ricotta after we get through. The pasta's been in the fridge for about 30 minutes or so. I've taken it out, put it on a floured surface, and now through the pasta machine, I'm running it from 0 to 6. 6 being the smallest, which is popcorn for ravioli. I'm on number 4 right now. So you can see how it's making it thinner and thinner with each pass. And also the pasta begins to get a little bit unruly because it becomes longer and longer. I'm going to cut it in half. Go to 5. So now I'm almost to the consistency, the thickness that I want. I'm on level 5 right now. And I'm trying to keep the dough from mashing too much. One more pass. To 6, and this should do it for the consistency I'm looking for. And that's the final product there. Okay, you can stop out.
Okay, so what happens now is I'm going to go ahead and turn on the video recording that we made with Claudia, and she's going to talk a little bit about Podere Marcampo, her land and her winery and her vineyards in Tuscany, just outside of Volterra, kind of near Florence and Pisa. And in the meantime, in the corner, you're going to see me and Charlotte and kind of getting that pasta that we just rolled out. We're going to get it stuffed with the ricotta cheese, and then we're gonna cook it as well. So it'll be a little bit of a commentary going on both ways between Claudia, myself, Charlotte, and then Leslie's going to grab the camera and run around a little bit too eventually. So right now, let me just get Claudia here to talk about Podere Marcampo. Here we go. And okay, we've got it. So Claudia's coming on right now.
So now, after the video that gave you just a general view of Marcampo, the hills, the vineyards.
Am I sharing the screen?
Now here,
No,
I'm going
Nancy,
to
I'm not.
mention a little bit more.
You can't see Claudia?
Who we are. Exactly what you see in the first picture that you see my family, my mom, my dad, and my brother. And actually, my brother is here. He's been here for a couple of weeks. He lives in the north of Italy with 2 kids. So we enjoyed some family during the Christmas holidays. And here we arrived at Marcampo in 2003. So we come from a restaurant tradition.
2003.
My family opened the first restaurant in 1991 in a little town, which is very important. It's a little town called Saline di Volterra. Saline means salt mines. This is important because it recalls the variety of soil that we have in this area. This area is very rich in salts. Actually, the salt mines are still active. And David, I invite you during your next trip to go and have a look at the museum of the
We're going to move this
salts,
camera around so you can see Charlotte stuff in the
been there before Christmas is outstanding. To see the Volterran salt is the purest salt of Italy because it's excavated from underground. And so they opened the first restaurant in 1991 with brooms. So we were not new on hospitality when we bought Marcampo. And slowly my parents started to promote their restaurant all over the world. They've been also to Miami to cook a couple of times. So basically all over. And slowly the dream was also to open another restaurant in Volterra, a little bit more cozy and more high quality. And here there's the restaurant Del Duca that was born. The restaurant Del Duca is still active beside this period, of course, because our Italian government doesn't let us be open. But since 2001, we also have that restaurant. For a couple of years, my parents run both the first restaurant, which had more than 200 seats, and the restaurant in Volterra. So it was becoming a little bit too much for them. And anyhow, their dream was to open, to buy a property in the countryside where to move, where to build their own house. And that's how Marcampo arrived. In 2003, my father finally found this ruin and fell in love. This meant that we had to take the decision, because of course we couldn't have 2 restaurants, 1 hotel, and a house to rebuild. It was really too much at the same time, considering the fact that my brother was at university to do a completely different job. And me, I was still a teenager, so I didn't know what to do of my life at that time. And of course, they had to take this decision to sell the first restaurant with hotel to be able to buy the property in the countryside. And that's how Marcampo arrived. I just go, I just put the slides, here we go. Just an idea, just to show you where we are. Volterra is a very ancient town. It dates back to the 10th century before Christ. It was one of the capitals of the Etruscan Etruscan Empire. Very important for its altitude. Podere is 530 meters, something like that, above sea level. But it has the good position to be exactly close by the seaside. In fact, our climate is influenced by the seaside, but also very close to Pisa, Firenze, Lucca, Siena, all the major sites in Tuscany. And here is a little hint of the city. Podere is actually a city.
So we've let our pasta dry out a little bit too much, so now we're going to put the ricotta cheese down here and try a little egg wash to keep the sides stick together.
Especially the Etruscan gate over here, which is the first example of arch architecture ever done in history. And here where we are. So this is Marcampo. We have this part that we use for guests. So all the rooms and apartments, whereas this is our house. And then we have our vegetable garden. And this is very important as during summer we like to grow salad, tomatoes, peppers, any kind of things that we can also use that for the activities that we propose.
I learned this on the cooking channel. I don't know if it'll work or not. We'll see.
On these two sides, I will show you a better picture. And these are the balze of Podere. These are very important. The balze is a natural phenomenon of landslides that started from the Etruscan age. This little dot that you see here above the hand, this is a piece of Etruscan wall. The Etruscan city of Podere was much bigger than the medieval one, and it basically happened at the Etruscan age that there was the first collapse.
Hey Nancy, remember when we were there in 2006, I think we hiked up there with Annie and Francesco.
Still ruins of the Etruscan tombs. And then a second landslide happened. If you see, this is the Church of San Giusto, the very first one that was built on the 14th century, collapsed as well. And this is the actual form of the balze. It's important because for now it's not moving, so we're very lucky.
No landslides.
And here's Marcampo, how it was, how it is now. Just the days after Christmas, with my parents and my brother, we took all the old pictures that we had and see all of them. There's so many pictures that now I want to print because we didn't remember how the building was. Here, as you can see, we had to keep the same shape by law because we are in an electron park.
I think that works.
Because of the environmental rules, we could not change the shape. So as you see, it's the same. What changes is this step that you see is from right to left. In this case, we did to left. It's still the landowner's house, and this used to be the stable or the horse stable and the barn. So we saved all the stones. So all the stones you see here that we use for the facades and the gardens are the original stones because we didn't want to lose them. They were originals. They were authentic. So we just decided to keep all of them and reuse to cover the house. Here you see better the vineyard. This is completely the whole property. We have in total, we own 11 hectares, which corresponds, I think, about 25 acres or something like that. But we have only 5 hectares, so about 12 acres of vineyards. The vineyards are all spread over here. We grow 5 different grape varieties. And we have Merlot on these two sides and this piece over here. Then we have the white grapes over here, Vermentino. And then the Sangiovese over here. Down below here, there's Ciliegio. And this is another little piece of vineyard that we planted, and it's Pugnitello. Tonight, you're going to taste the wines from Sangiovese, Merlot, and Vermentino because are the three grapes that are already producing. The other two, Pugnitello and Ciliegio, which are two red varieties, will start next year. We were hoping in 2020, but there was not enough quantity to harvest them. So we are going to start in 2021, hopefully. And here is all the house. So we've seen the picture from this side. And the wine cellar, as you can see, is all underground in this area. And here we have the new tasting room that we built recently with glass windows to be able to enjoy all the view around. And here's some pictures about the rooms. The rooms, apartments, this is our breakfast area inside and outside. The rooms and the swimming pool with salt water. I really hope you will enjoy it. And these the activities, because as we are in agriturismo, we also like to share our knowledge and products. So we talk about wine tastings. Here we are in the tasting room. You see the glass with the view onto Volterra, which is this one, and the cooking classes. So we do them from homemade bread that I know David made. So I'm so curious. I wish I was there with you tonight. And homemade pasta, a whole meal to enjoy a day together. And then, of course, you will eat what you prepared. And here's the wine production.
This is really dry.
As I was saying, we have 5 hectares, about 12 acres, divided into these 5 grapes.
Yeah.
And as I was mentioning before, the important side of this area is the high presence of salt and minerals. This is because of the past presence of the seaside. 4 million of years ago, this area was completely covered. So when the sea reduced and the land immersed, all the settlements were basically left into the soil. That's why the salt mines, that's why the shells on the ground. Close by this area, about 20 minutes going towards Pisa, there is a piece of soil with the remains of a coral barrier. So you can imagine how this area was, a sea, completely a sea. And so the 5 different varieties that we grow organically. Organically, unofficially since ever, officially since 2017. And here now I would like to tell you a little bit about the wine production, but also the land working, because remember, that's very important. The wine is always made in the vineyard. This is something you should remember because of different factors that work together. First of all, remember that wine is made of grapes, and grapes are made, they grow in a vineyard. So there are different characteristics that convey together to give a result to these grapes. And the first is the soil. So as you can see, we have clay with a high presence of salt, which is a completely different soil from other areas. So the roots react differently, and the same variety can have, actually it really has, different taste according to where they are grown. So soil, altitude, of course, weather. Weather, of course, is a big profiler for the grapes. That means a big vintage that is more dry and sunny. We expect to have a wine that is more concentrated and more alcoholic. A vintage with more rain during the summer will give us fresher wines. So this it's very important. That's why you see on each label the vintage, because the vintage records how the climate was on that year, and we can find back the characteristics into the wine itself. And then beside this, there's also our job, human work. And the fact that we are organic, the fact that we work everything manually. As you can see in the first up here, my father is pruning, and I'm taking the stems away for the new one to grow. And if you see all this greenery between the rows, this is natural fertilizers, because right after the harvest, we need to nourish the soil. It needs food, and we do it thanks to some plants like fava beans and cereal like barley, nitrogen into the soil. And as you can see, all the work is manual, including the harvest. This is very important because manual work gives us more control. And some stages of the grapes, I really wanted to share it with you because I love all these stages. As I was telling you here, we prune. You see, these are the old stems that we prune, and that's how it looks like. There's the little gems. The little gems in March, they germinate. So they become these little flowers that white dots are the flowers of the grapes that will be pollinated by the bees.
Our camera went dead.
And will
the pasta
give
here.
the final result. The grapes that from little green dots will start to grow, to incorporate water.
It's not on.
They become green. For the white grapes, basically they will stay green. But for the red grapes, that's what happens. This is my favorite time of the year because you have the clusters that are multicolors. So from green to light pink to light purple to deep purple until we arrive to the harvest. And you see how dark then.
I'm gonna let Charlotte and Leslie try this, and then I'll
during the summer,
throw the camera over there and let them tell you how it
tastes. We actually rely more on the weather to try to rain sometimes because the importance here is to keep the roots moist, considering that the roots don't go deeper than 2 meters, the risk is that they live on a dry environment.
I'm videoing their tasting on my iPhone. You'll see it later.
That we have to, first of all, till the soil. By tilling the soil, so making it smashed, we allow the possible rains to drain the water into the soil rather than flow away. As you can see on the pictures, on the picture over here. But rain, somehow, some oxygen goes through, and anyhow we have a dripping system that is here of irrigation, but only in case of extreme necessity, because remember that the vines have to suffer to give a great grape. And one other thing is that I forgot to mention before is how many grapes will let the plant produce. Consider that to get quality, there are the factors that I was telling you about before that need to concur together. So the quantity of grape will let the plant grow. The more grapes are on each plant, the less nutrients each cluster get. So reduce, and this we do it with the pruning, we do it in May. We have to reduce the amount of grapes growing on the plant to be able to concentrate all the nutrients, and therefore have a higher quality grape. Because from a high quality, from a low quality, we can never make a high quality wine. So we have to start, it's like cooking. We need to start with the freshest and the highest quality ingredients. Then the rest is all a consequence. So harvest is all done by hand, as you can see in the pictures. We have a group of friends. Of course, anyone who will be in this area at that time will be very welcome to participate. We don't pay our friends to harvest, but we have a big meal afterwards and lots of wine. So I tell you, maybe it's better to pay in money than with food and wine, especially Italian people.
Salute.
And it's all done by hand because we have, again, a better control of the grapes. If there's some clusters that don't really look nice, we just don't get them. And here's the first phase of the wine making. Here's how we start. You can see my father. Here we have the little boxes. We don't harvest in big ones because the risk is that they press themselves and then they start a wild fermentation, because grapes have everything to become wine. On the skins,
so by the way, when the pasta begins to float, sugars, so it's cooked okay. So it's only like you see 3 or 4 minutes, not like pasta that we buy in a box. So I'm getting ready to serve Charlotte's son because her mouth is watering over here.
Basically, occur. And as you can see in the first picture, my father takes some of the leaves away, but then pours the grapes into the destemming machine, and on one side with the stems, on the other side, thanks to this red pipe, the grapes, they go into this stainless steel tank, and slowly they press themselves thanks to the gravity and start the alcoholic fermentation. The alcoholic fermentation is basically a natural reaction. It's the passage of the sugars into alcohol and carbon dioxide, and this happens thanks to the yeast on the skins and that react with the sugars inside the flesh. As I was saying before, the grapes have everything to become wine. So they have moleculars responsible of the color, and they have it on the skins. They have molecular responsible for the flavor, and they have it on the skins and in the flesh. They have the water content, the sugar content, the acids, the pH, and tannins on the skins. Talking about red grapes. So right after we destem the grapes and they go into these tanks, they slowly start to ferment. When they ferment, they produce the CO2 that we have to let evaporate, otherwise we make a sparkling wine. And this happens
exactly in the picture you see on the left. My father on top of the ladder, on top of the stainless steel vats, opening the vat and collecting the juice fermenting from the bottom to the top. This is because the oxygen, which is an important instrument for the wine making, can basically let the CO2 evaporate by nature. And this movement that you see, we do it 3 times a day. The juice has to oxygenate because there's also some metals produced that have to evaporate, as well as the CO2. And the oxygen has another important function, which is the one to fix the color in the wine. After, of course, this wine, the juice has become wine, and the skins are exhausted, and as you can see on my hand on the left, it's time to separate the wine from the skins. The skins are still pretty wet, and they go to the distillery to make a grappa, so no waste. They have 2 functions. One, they can go to the distillery to make a grappa, which is the distillation of the grape skins. It's a spirit. And the second function they have, they can go back from where they came from, so the vineyards, to compost. So we can use
Thanks to our friend John Grennan, who put some grappa here for the tasting on Saturday.
And it's time to decide. So, as we said, the grapes became juice. They fermented for a couple of weeks, during which we did 3 times a day the pumping overs. When the fermentation is finished, it's time to separate the skins from the wine itself. And during the winter, the wine stays in stainless steel vats because the cold weather allows all the impurities to fall at the bottom of the vat. So we are cleaning the wine from possible bacteria. In fact, every 2-3 weeks, we have to rack the wine. That means to move it from a vat to another one to be able to clean the bottom of the vat. There is a cream. It's a light purple cream. That is all the impurities of the wine. And then when we arrive in spring, so we talk about March, we decide how much wine keeps aging in stainless steel vats to make the genuino, that you have the first red that we're going to taste, and how much wine goes into the oak barrels. These on the left are tonneau, 500 liters of barrels. And then we have also now at the moment 2 big oak barrels like this one, where we make a traditional Sangiovese style. Here's the wines. Tonight we are going to taste the Vermentino, the Terra Blu, the Genuino Sangiovese Merlot and the Marcampo Sangiovese Merlot, and the Giusto alle Valse, our top wine, Merlot. The Sangiovese, it's still sitting in the oak barrel, the new vintage. We haven't bottled it yet because our idea is to age it this time 2 years instead of 1. So we're trying a much longer aging, but of course we have to sacrifice and not drink this wine for a few months. But it will be great. So, and here we go. Do you all have the glass on your hands?
I'll stop it there because you don't have a glass on your hands. But I just want you to know we had a fantastic experience tasting those 4 wines, and a lot of information that Claudia gave to us as we were tasting. Some information about how to smell the wine, how to taste the wine, you know, where it came from, why in one part of their property or vineyards it tastes different from the other. And it's about another 30 minutes worth of that I edited it all out. I see a couple of you were at the tasting the other night, so you know how that went. We had some technical problems as well, but it all worked out just fine, and I got all the information. So I'm going to post what you just saw along with the tasting portion on Facebook and on my website tomorrow, so that if you want to fast forward and watch the tasting part and get an idea of their wines, you can get that. So that kind of wraps up what we're doing right now. I just want to thank you for joining in tonight. This is the first week in several that we've actually succeeded with getting live streaming on Facebook. So those of you on Facebook, thank you so much for watching that. I know several of you text me ahead of time and said I put up the wrong coordinates for the Zoom call, but I see that we've got several of you on here as well. So thank you everybody for doing that. And with that said, I'm gonna probably cook me some pasta and move on. So one last thing is, if you've enjoyed this, please let me know. And if you didn't get included in this wine tasting we just had, which after the fact, many people did not, we can always order another case and have another wine tasting. In about a month is what it takes to get the wine over here. So if you're interested, text me, message me, email me. And if we can get 16 or 20 people to sign up to do it, it's well worth our while to do that and have Claudia join us again. Okay. Hey, thank you so much for joining me tonight on Travel Talk Tuesday. Next week is about Rome. But for now, arrivederci from Middleburg, Florida. See you later. Buona serata.